Welcome, welcome, welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 420 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. And here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm going to ask you to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. Where I'm going to start this episode is with a fact. A fact that a lot of people know. And this fact affects how we see this sport. The fact is, there are very little upsets in an NBA playoffs. If you don't believe me, you can look it up. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but what I'm saying is there's very little upsets in an NBA playoffs. I think that's why when people do polls and when organizations, news outlets do polls, a lot of times the NBA playoffs are towards the bottom of, postseason rankings because a lot of people like upsets. A lot of people like the one and dones. A lot of people love March Madness, both men's and women's, for the unpredictability. A lot of people like the NFL playoffs because, it's one and done. And obviously their love for football. But the thing that a 7-game series will always show is who is the better team. I know it sounds obvious, it sounds elementary to a point, but it's true. A 7-game series will always prove who is the better team. Now, going into the series, things could happen due to injury whether we're talking about injury, whether we're talking about someone doesn't live up to their stature, no one doesn't play to the level that they're supposed to play. Whatever it is, that 7-game series is going to prove who is the better team out of both combatants. Obviously, we have rankings. And obviously, going into the Lakers-Nuggets series, the Nuggets, who are ranked second in the West, and the Lakers, who are ranked seventh, there should be nobody that thinks that the Lakers have a shot to win this series. Because, not just because of the rankings, because the rankings can be misleading, because what we've seen all season. It's very hard to take everything that we've seen from the regular season and equate it to the playoffs, because obviously that's two different things. The regular season is the regular season. The playoffs is the playoffs. But one thing that I say that on this podcast a lot, and one thing that I truly believe you should take from the regular season and apply it to the playoffs is consistency. You can have the best player, you can have the better team, but if you don't have consistency, you're always going to be playing behind the 8 ball. We can talk about the shot. We can talk about the Jamal Murray shot that essentially put the Nuggets up 2-0 against the Lakers. It's one of the best shots that you will see in a playoff game. It wasn't a game 7, but it looked eerily similar to the Kawhi Leonard when he was on the Toronto Raptors going against the Philadelphia 76ers shot that he shot over Joel Embiid. Jamal Murray shot it over Anthony Davis. Again, I understand that the stakes were a little higher with the Kawhi Leonard shot, but it did look eerily similar. You can obviously talk about that, and that probably has been the play of the playoff so far. Now, granted, as I'm shooting this, I think there's 3 games tonight. There's the Bucks Pacers, there's the Timberwolves and Suns, and there's the Clippers Mavericks for their game 2s. That's as I'm shooting this. So I don't know the outcome of those games. I'm going to talk about those series briefly, but I don't know if there's been better games or better outcomes from those games, is what I'm saying. But what I will say about this Lakers and Nuggets series, I understand that the NBA is different than it was years ago. I understand that we're in a new age of basketball where offense is at an all-time high because this is the best offensive talent the NBA has ever seen. That's no offense to the Jordan era, the early 2000s, the early or the 90s. That's no offense, but we are living in an age where we're seeing the best offensive players the league has ever seen. So I understand that leads are not essentially as secure as they've been in the past. A 10-point lead may have been more secure back in the day because there wasn't as many 3-point shooters or as good as 3-point shooters as there is today. I get it. I understand. But getting hawked down after having a 20-point lead in a playoff game while you're away should show you all you need to know about this Lakers and Nuggets series. I talked about this when we talked about college basketball and when we were talking about March Madness, and I said it's the little things. The little things get magnified in playoff series. The little things get magnified in games that matter more. There should be nobody that thinks that the Lakers are better than the Nuggets as a team. I think if we're talking about an overall team, the Nuggets are a better team than the Lakers. But what that means is the Lakers have less margin of error than the Nuggets. So when you're up 20, when you're up 22, when you're up a huge deficit, when you're up a huge margin, that's when you have to be more careful. That's when those margin of victories, or margin of errors, while it doesn't seem like they can affect you when you're playing against a team that's better than you, you still have to be on your P's and Q's. So bad turnovers, bad timeouts, bad shots, they all add up. I'm not one to call a series after 2 games. Obviously, you have to win 4. And obviously, the Lakers can come back and win. But the reason why I think that this series is over is because there's usually a game in the playoffs that things that aren't, or let me see, how do I say it? All the unknown factors of a series happen in one game. Going into the series, we said that the only way that the Lakers could win is if you get a great game from LeBron James, a great game from Anthony Davis, a really good game from D'Angelo Russell, seeing as though he's a point guard, getting exceptional shooting from the rest of the team, and you have a game where Jamal Murray doesn't play well. Jokic, he can play well, but nobody else around him can really play well. That is the only way that you can win a game, a series against the Nuggets. That's exactly what you got. LeBron James was great. Anthony Davis was having one of his all-time playoff games. D'Angelo Russell was having his all-time playoff game. Jamal Murray was like 3 for 16 or something like that going into the fourth. While Jokic did finish with 26, 20, and 10, he was the only one really doing something, which allowed the Lakers to build a 20-point lead in the fourth, I believe. And you essentially got hawked down, and Jamal Murray hits the game winner. The game that you... Obviously, I didn't think that the Lakers were going to beat the Nuggets, seeing as what we've seen from the Nuggets all year and what we've seen from the Lakers. But if there was any way that I thought that the Lakers were going to win, it was that game, and everything was lined up for them to win. And as we look up today, the Lakers are down 2-0 in a series against the defending champs. It's all about the margin of error. Every team has a different level of margin of error, and when you're the better team, usually the margins are wider. Well, the Lakers had everything in their favor. They were hitting shots. They were playing really good defense. You were having an unexpected game after a stinker from D'Angelo Russell. And then you looked up, and the mistakes started to snowball. And when you're playing against a better team, all they need is that sliver of daylight. They can go right through it. So, again, shouts out to the Nuggets for having one of the most hitting, Jamal Murray hitting one of the best playoff buckets, game winners of recent memory. And again, I don't like to be the one to call for a series after just 2 games or after just 1 game, but it's very hard to look at what we saw, especially in game 2, and think that I think what the issue is, not the issue, but I think why I'm kind of at this point is because I feel the Lakers played the best. I feel from what the talent margin that they have, I think they played their best. And their best was able to get them a 20-point lead against the Nuggets at Denver. And even still, they lost. That's why I think that this series is essentially over. I don't think the Lakers could play any better. Yes, moments they could have played better, but as a whole game, I don't think the Lakers could have played any better than they played in game 2, and they still lost. That's all I'm saying. But I think the series is kind of over, but we'll obviously see moving forward. And if I'm wrong, I will definitely come in here and say I'm wrong. I don't mind talking about it. There's a lot of things that can be true about the Knicks 76er series. This is kind of why I say that the seedings are not as concrete as you'd think. A couple things, like I said, can be true about the Knicks 76er series. It is obviously true that the Knicks are up 2-0 in the series. Obvious. It's obviously true that the Knicks have seized winning moments more than the 76ers obviously have in this series. Those things are true. I think what can be subjective is who has been the better team throughout this playoff series so far. Again, I'm not taking anything away from the New York Knicks. But watching how these games are being played, watching how these games unfold, and looking at Joel Embiid, it's clear as day to me that if we had a healthy Joel Embiid, the Sixers would probably be the better team and would essentially could possibly win this series. And that's kind of where I kind of want to stop at Joel Embiid. When Joel Embiid tore his meniscus, or partially tore his meniscus, I came on here and said that you have to focus on yourself. You have to be, your brand is yourself. I know it's a selfish thing, and when we talk about team sports, it's tough to relay the message of be your best advocate. Because in team sports, that's kind of frowned upon. It's always, what's best for the team, and you have to put yourself for the team. And I get that. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but there's no way that you can look at this series, this Knicks 76ers series, and look at Joel Embiid and think he's supposed to be out there. There's no way that you can look and see him limping the whole game and see him laboring to get up every single time he hits the floor, or to see him not be able to get elevation on his jump shot or rebounds, or to see him literally try to sprint and his body won't allow him, and think this guy is healthy enough to play. I'm not taking anything away from the Knicks. I think the Knicks have been great. No, what the Knicks have done is they've seized the moments. If you look at how both games ended, the Knicks have been able to seize the moment. The Knicks have been able to we talk about margin of victory, and those moments, they've been able to seize the moments. Whether we talk about, a Tyrese Maxey turnover that essentially got Dante DiVincenzo a wide open shot, he misses, and then Isaiah Hartenstein gets the offensive rebound, kicks it back out to DiVincenzo. He hits the three. Those margin of error, or those margins, they seized it. But like I said, a couple things can be true. I think that the Knicks have been the better team down the stretch of both of these games. Even with Jalen Brunson struggling, especially in game 2 with his shot, the Knicks have been the better team finishing games. But I think that if you look at the team and you look at the game, the 76ers have been the better overall team. They just have not been able to close. And a lot of that is because the things that they're used to, the things that made them the 76ers, at least when you look at Joel Embiid and his health, he's not right. And there's no way he should be on this floor. But I also understand, and I think he understands, and the 76ers understand, they have no shot, absolutely no shot of winning this series if Joel Embiid is not out there. I've said this before, and I say this again. I don't care if you don't have your best player, especially if your best player is on that superstar status, you have no shot. You may have shot to win a series. We'll talk about the Clippers Denver series in a second. Maybe, you might have a shot to win a series if you don't have your superstar best player. But a lot of times you don't in situations like this. I don't think the 76ers have a shot in hell if Joel Embiid is not there. But the issue is, even with I don't think they have a shot if Joel Embiid is not 100%, and he's clearly not 100%. Again, I don't think the Knicks have been dramatically better than the 76ers have been in this series. In fact, I think the 76ers have been the better team in these first two games. What I will give the Knicks credit for, and what I think the Knicks have exceeded in, is the winning plays at the end of games. They have made more winning plays than the 76ers, obviously, which is why they find themselves up 2-0 in the series. Now, again, another thing I want to talk about is officiating, because we've seen some questionable calls and non-calls with the Nuggets Lakers series, and we've seen it towards the end, especially game 2 with the Knicks and 76ers. I agree with the sentiment that you should never allow the game to get to the point where a ref's decision, a ref's call dictates what happens. I think you're definitely playing with fire when you're taking the outcome out of your hands, essentially, and needing somebody else that is not part of the team to dictate how the game goes or how the game is called at the end. I think you do yourself a disservice when you have to worry about somebody else's call. But in the same breath, I do think that there has to be some type of, or there has to be more of an accountability with the refs and how their missed calls dictate a game. And I think the biggest slap in the face to fans, to these teams, to the NBA in general, is usually the day after the game or 2 days after, when the ref report or the ref statement comes out, pretty much confirming what everyone has seen and confirming, yeah, that was a foul, or no, that wasn't a foul. There has to be some type of accountability, and I'm not blaming refs for anything. I think the reason why the Denver Nuggets are up 2-0, I think the reason why the Knicks are up 2-0 is because they deserve to be up 2-0, and they played their way to 2 wins. But there have been some blatant missed calls with both of those series, and I do think that those missed calls have essentially affected how the end of the game went down. Whether we talk about D'Angelo Russell getting hit in the face, whether we talk about Tyrese Maxey getting held on the last play that essentially ended in Dante DiVincenzo hitting the 3. I think there has to be more accountability, because if there's not, you're going to continue to get situations like you have with those 2 games. And again, I'm not taking away from the Nuggets. I'm not taking away from the Knicks. I think that they both deserved the record that they have right now in the playoffs. I just think there has to be more of accountability with the refs. I will say that. Because the last thing that the NBA wants is the way the game is viewed to be skewed, because of missed calls and poor officiating. Because it's we talk about image, right? And we always talk about how these organizations, these leagues, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, they care dramatically about how you view them. They care dramatically about what their perception is, because that's essentially what makes them money, viewership. And if the viewership continues to go down or continues to decline because of the poor officiating, that's going to be a major problem. Well, this is the second game, or there's been two, at least to this point, there's been two series that have been, people can say have been dictated or have been swayed by bad officiating. I don't think so, but that's what's being said. So I think the NBA definitely should figure something out, because when you got LeBron, who is obviously the face of the league, still calling out the refs in the playoff series, or you have Joel Embiid talking about the refs. Just saying. Let's move forward. I talked about the Knicks and 76ers, and I said that it doesn't matter what team you are. If you don't have your star player, you really don't have a shot. I want to look at this Clippers and Mavericks series. Now, again, I'm shooting this before Game 2, so I don't know the outcome of Game 2. The reason why I have said multiple times this year that this is the year where, if it doesn't, I talked about Golden State, and I know people are like, why are you talking about Golden? I talked about Golden State in the sense of, I said if Golden State doesn't make the playoffs and it's an ugly fashion, which it kind of was when we talk about how Klay Thompson played and how the team played in the play-in, I think that it's time to blow it up. I'm not saying completely wreck the team, completely just gut the team, but there has to be major changes. I feel the same exact way to a certain extent with the Clippers. And I've said it all year. When you have Paul George, when you have Kawhi Leonard, when you have Russell Westbrook, when you bring in James Harden, all of which are future Hall of Famers, there's a different level of expectation. Yes, Kawhi Leonard has a long history of being hurt in key moments. I think the last two times Kawhi Leonard had a completely healthy playoff run was when he won with the Spurs and when he won with the Raptors. Ever since then, there's been, he may have been healthy towards the end of the games, but I don't think he's had a completely healthy playoff run. Same thing with Paul George. Paul George has been a little more healthier, but he's not as much as Kawhi Leonard in the sense of the playoffs. Russell Westbrook is not the same Russell Westbrook that he was, obviously, with OKC. He's still serviceable. He's still can be a really good player, but he is, I think, gone to the days where he can be your best player in a playoff series. Same with James Harden. I think James Harden has a little bit more best player in him juice than Russell Westbrook does, but the Clippers invest so much into this team. And one of the major reasons why I said that the Golden State Warriors probably have to make some major moves is because they pay so much money for a team that essentially didn't make the playoffs. And on top of that, not just didn't make the playoffs, are not even close to championship caliber play, or not even close to a championship caliber team. I'm not saying that the Clippers have to win a championship this year. But what I'm saying is you can't go out in the first round to the Dallas Mavericks, especially when you see that the Dallas Mavericks really only have two players that you can depend on night in and night out, and that is Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. The Clippers have 4 future Hall of Famers playing right now. Like, come on. Which brings me back to Kawhi Leonard. I think there has to be some type of how do I say this? You know why we look at Kawhi Leonard and Ben Simmons differently? It's because of success. Kawhi Leonard, obviously, at his height, was a better player than Ben Simmons was. Ben Simmons, at his height, was great. You know, Rookie of the Year, All NBA teams, all defensive teams, runner up for defensive player of the year, all-star selections, Kawhi Leonard obviously was better than Ben Simmons at their height. Both were really good, but But this is yet another year where Kawhi Leonard is not healthy in the most important time they need him to be healthy, and that's the playoffs. I was shocked that the Team USA announced Kawhi Leonard being on the team. I thought Kawhi Leonard should be on the team because I think that when healthy, he is a top 12 player in the league, especially when we talk about American player. But kind of like Ben Simmons, you always have to put that when healthy caveat. And that is another reason why I think that if the Clippers do not make a run this year, especially with all the talent that they have, there is going to be major changes, or there should be major changes. I know Kawhi Leonard just signed his extension, but how many times can you pay as much as you're paying for a team and they essentially continue to underachieve? Again, I'm not saying they have to make the suit or they have to win an NBA championship, but there's no way that this team, with the talent that they have, should not be at least making it to the end, making it to the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, we'll see. But I think there's a reason why a lot of people don't, outside of the Nuggets being as good as they are, I think there's a reason why a lot of people don't expect the Clippers to make much noise in these playoffs, and a lot of it is because of injury. And when that is attached to your team, I think changes have to be made. If you look up and you don't essentially reach your goal, which, I mean, the Clippers are a 4 seed. That a 4 seed when you have, again, 4 Hall of Famers on your team, future Hall of Famers on your team. So we'll see. We'll see. Let's move forward. Um, I started this episode by saying that it's very rare that actually there's very rare upsets in NBA playoffs. A 7-game series usually takes upsets out of it because it's very hard to beat a better team 4 out of 7 times. Point blank period. I didn't say that there were never upsets. I just think that there's not a lot of them. Well, one big upset that you can say happened last year where the Heat they beat they beat a couple people. They beat the Bucks and they beat the Celtics. Well, if you look up, the Celtics destroyed the Heat the first round or first game. I know the second game is on Wednesday, which is when this episode drops. The Celtics have been the best team all year. They have the best record going into the playoffs, and they look like by far the best team in the playoffs so far. I know it's just one game, but the way that they're shooting the ball, the way that they execute their offense, the way that they're executing their defense. I understand that there's a whole if Jimmy Butler was playing thing. I don't think Jimmy Butler could have, at least with this Celtics team, I don't think that the Jimmy Butler led Heat can do anything with this Celtics team. It goes back to what I was talking about when I said we have to pick a side a couple episodes ago. We have to pick a side, and we have to really pick how we feel about this Heat team. Again, I think habits are important to build in the playoffs. I said that when we were talking about the Lakers Nuggets, and I say that constantly. You cannot. I understand that there isn't a proverbial flipping the switch, but if you have not seen a flip switch all season, how do you expect to know how to do that in the playoffs? Don't get me wrong. I know that the Heat have been in the NBA Finals, or at least conference finals, 2 of the last 3 years. But as we look, they are completely outmatched against at least game 1 against these Celtics. Now the Celtics could essentially underachieve, but I would be shocked if this Heat team can beat this Celtics team. I'd be shocked if this Celtics team doesn't make the NBA Finals. Especially when we look at what we've seen throughout these playoffs on the western side or eastern side. I'm sorry. But the Celtics have been clear-cut the best team in the playoffs, in my opinion, and they've been the better team in this series by far. I don't think that the Heat have any shot of winning this series, especially without Jimmy Butler. And honestly, if I'm giving percentage-wise, without Jimmy Butler, I give the Heat a 10% chance of winning this series. With Jimmy Butler, I give them a 15. Still not much of a gap. I mean, this Celtics team is this good. And we saw it game 1, especially how they shoot the 3. So, we'll see. I think the most interesting, the most fun series that we've seen so far is the Timberwolves and Suns, which you're kind of seeing as a changing of guard right before our eyes. With LeBron's age being where it is, Steph Curry's age being where it is, Kevin Durant's age being where it is, it's essential. I mean, it's obvious that, and it's a foregone conclusion that the whole face of the league argument is going to pop up eventually, right? And one name that has been circling around when we talk about the face of the league moving forward is Anthony Edwards. And what we're seeing in this series is one of the reasons why I think that the Timberwolves have a good shot of not only beating the Suns, but making a deep playoff run is because they play defense. They're probably one of the best defensive teams in the playoffs. And on top of that, they're led by Anthony Edwards. One of the biggest reasons why I didn't think that I think the Suns can be dangerous, but I didn't think the Suns were great is because defensively they're not that good. I know when you look at statistics, and I know when you look at they have one of the best half-court defenses in basketball, but that's kind of misleading. Because when you get to the nitty-gritty of it, when you look at the games and you see that they have to guard one-on-one, it's tough. I think this Suns team, in fact, the only reason why people think this Suns team could essentially win this game, or not win this game, win this series, is because of name, is because they have Kevin Durant, is because they have Devin Booker, is because they have Bradley Beal. 3 lethal ISO scores. But we're seeing a changing of the guard. We're seeing Anthony Edwards arise. And I'm not saying that Kevin Durant's falling in no sense of the imagination, but I do think that gone are the days where, because Kevin Durant is in an era where he going on to the court, he essentially was the best player as far as offensively, not 9.9 times out of 10. I'm not saying that Anthony Edwards is essentially better than him offensively. What I'm saying is he is not on the best team. And Anthony Edwards is no scrub offensively, obviously. So that's probably very intriguing. You know, and another thing, man, I find myself, and I'm not rooting for anyone to lose or win. Obviously, my Wizards ain't in the playoffs, so I ain't rooting against nobody. But I think that this is a very dangerous series for the Suns in terms of the outcome. I think when we talk about legacy, and obviously that conversation comes up a lot when we talk about, KD and, Steph, Braun, and the players that are kind of, out the door sooner than later, I'll say. I think KD's legacy for a lot of people has already been tarnished once he decided to go from OKC to Golden State. I think for a lot of people, it doesn't matter what he did after that. They're always going to look at him differently. And I even said that going to Golden State changed how many people view Kevin Durant in the present and in the future. Like, Kevin Durant's legacy is going to kick up what happens during this Golden State era and after. A lot of people never really talk about what he did in OKC. Even though he was an MVP, he got them to a championship. He got them to a couple of Western Conference finals, I'm saying all this to say, I think if the Suns do not win this series, and it's another first round exit for Kevin Durant after going to Golden State, people are really going to look at him differently. And people are really going to. I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, offensive weapon we've ever seen. I think his legacy is intact. But I do think that it's going to, you have to speak about him a tad bit differently if you look up and he hasn't even been to a conference finals after Golden State. And that's with Brooklyn. And now, if he doesn't win with the Suns, with the Suns. And on top of that, Kevin Durant is one of those players that has not. You know how they have like fake rosters and fake mock drafts of players that X player has played with. Like I saw the other day, somebody did a draft, or a couple people did a draft of only players that Russell Westbrook has played with, or only players that James Harden has played with, or only players that LeBron James has played with. Well, when you look at the when you look at the players that Kevin Durant has played with in his career, whether that's James Harden, whether that's Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, now Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, all these players, you can make an argument are Hall of Famers. And I think that kind of like with the whole legacy thing and kind of like what I was talking about with the Clippers, I think this is a very important series for the Suns. And I definitely think this is a very important series for Kevin Durant as far as legacy talk. I'm not saying he has to win, but he has to be competitive. In fact, I think he has to win. Because people are going to look at him like, damn, the only time you've seen success in the finals is alongside Steph, So we'll see. You know what this Bucks Pacer series is showing me? Again, I have not seen Game 2. Game 2 is tonight. I'm recording this on a Tuesday afternoon, late evening, so I don't know what has happened. But what the Bucks and Pacers are showing me is, in fact, what the Bucks and Pacers are proving is what I said about the 76ers Knicks as far as you need your best players to win. The Bucks, let's not get it twisted. I don't think that there is a shot of them making a deep playoff run without Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is arguably a top 3 player in the league. Even if they don't have the Bucks, or even if the Bucks don't have him for this series, actually, I like Damian Lillard, man. Damian Lillard went off at least the first half of last game, or first game, and destroyed the Pacers. But what that game kind of showed me is what happens if that doesn't happen. Like, what happens if we get a regular Damian Lillard game? I don't think the Bucks are that much better than the Pacers. I just think that you had Damian Lillard, who's been struggling going into the playoffs. He just erupted. And it's hard to overcome that, I will say that. But I think the Pacers I will say this. I give the Pacers a good. I don't know what happens in game two, obviously, but I give the Pacers a good shot of winning this series if Giannis is not there. Because I think that their defense is going to be much different on Dame, or at least it should be much different on Dame. The Pacers missed a lot of wide open shots. Pascal did have like 30 something, I think. But we'll see. You know, I don't really have much analysis on this series because I don't think the bar for the Bucks, at least going into, after getting Dame, I don't think it should be the Pacers. Now, I don't know. We'll see. Kind of the same thing with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think, what was interesting? The Oklahoma City Thunder showed their youth game one. That's kind of the fear that you have with young teams. They don't know what they don't know. When you're in the playoffs is a different animal than the regular season, and you're playing against, or the Thunder, which is why I still think, and I will go down in saying that I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should be the MVP. Teams as young as the Thunder, again, their age is comparable to a college team. And they're the number one seed. And then as you saw in game one, they looked all of a 21 to 22-year-old team. They looked young as hell. Couldn't hit nothing to save their life. Shea was missing. Chet was taking bad shots. Everyone looked bad. Yet it didn't matter. They still won. Because if it wasn't for Shea coming up big in the final moments, I do think that it sucks that Zion hasn't been able to play or didn't play game one, and I don't think he'll really be able to play for this series due to his injury and everything. But it is interesting to see how this series would be different if Zion was playing, because we know right now Brandon Ingram, he's not 100% right, and CJ McCollum is not a number one at all, so he's not carrying no team. I don't know, man, but that was an interesting game because we saw why a lot of people, or if you look at the history of the league, a lot of young teams don't really succeed because the playoffs is just a completely different beast, completely different animal than the regular season. But even in that, the Thunder still were able to squeak out a win, so shouts out to them. Moving forward, I don't know. I'll probably give them a better shot against the Mavericks because of how good they play defense than the Clippers, but I don't know. Hell, they can lose this series. I don't know. But it was very interesting to watch that game. The youth was starting to peak its ugly head with the Thunder, but they essentially won, so shouts out to them. And then it goes back. How the Thunder looked is exactly how the Magic have looked. Just they have played up against a better team. The Magic, I hope Jalen Suggs gets healthy. It looks like he's going to be gone for an extended period of time, so he's probably done. The Cavaliers and Magic were probably the two best kept secrets in the NBA this year, probably because they didn't get a lot of coverage. But when you talk about the Cavaliers and the Magic, they're probably the best defensive teams outside of the Timberwolves. At least in the East, they have probably been the best defensive two teams most of the season, which is why, I have Jalen Suggs as my all-defensive second team, I think. But you're just seeing a team that has been there before, even though they are still on the young side, whether we talk about Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. This team has been there before compared to a team that really hasn't. Paolo hasn't really been playing well. In fact, nobody on this Nugget or on the Magic really have been playing well outside of like Joe Ingles. But you just see a team that hasn't been there before, and their youth is kind of taking over their, and what I mean by that is, when you're a younger team and you've never been there, a lot of things, you start getting tight in area, like in big situations. Sometimes you're scared to shoot. Sometimes you're second guessing yourself on the fly, and that's not going to help anybody. So, yeah, you're just seeing a team that has been there compared to a team that hasn't. I don't think that the Magic are that much worse than the Cavaliers, but again, experience, not experience, is a huge factor in that series. So we'll see. Again, man, this playoffs is. I love the NBA. I love basketball. I love watching these games, and it's always interesting to see the storylines and how every series plays out. Again, I understand that there's not a lot of upset, and I'm not saying that all the top seeds are going to win, but what I am saying is in a series, you're going to understand who is the better team, and who the better team is going to be clear cut by the end. I'm not saying they're blowing out everyone, but I am saying that it's very rare that the better team does not come out of a series. I will say that, and it's been very interesting, and I'm excited to continue to watch the NBA, NBA finals. This week is not just a big week in the NBA, obviously. Also, not just a big week in NHL. Their NHL playoffs is going on. I haven't talked about it at all because my Capitals, while they are in it, I don't know if they have much of a shot against the Rangers, but obviously it's a big week for the NBA and NHL. It's also a big week for the NFL. I think the draft is starting on Thursday. And a lot of people ask why I haven't done a mock, or why I don't do a mock draft on a consistent basis. I think I did one or two of them. And honestly, I'll give you guys I'll let you guys come behind the curtain, or go behind the curtain. I actually did a mock draft of the first round of this draft. Like, if you look right here, I have every first round pick that I think is going to happen. Now, I don't really want to go over it, and I'm not going to go over it. And but from pick number 1, Chicago, to pick number 32, the Kansas City Chiefs, I have a mock draft of everyone that I think is going to be picked in the first round. Here's why I don't like doing mock drafts. I don't really like discussing mock drafts. Is because of the unpredictability of the draft. Because you can do a mock draft and essentially it can all be wrecked from a trade. Or you look at somebody that should be a bona fide top 10, top 5 pick, and they just slide insane, like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson won a Heisman for Louisville and was at the end of the draft. Again, I have a mock draft right here. I'm not going to go over it. I will say, as a Washington fan, number 2, I heard the reports come out saying Jaden Daniels and his representatives were not too fond of Washington for bringing a group of prospects out at once. They thought it was going to be a one-on-one thing. I think Jaden McDaniels is the second best quarterback in this draft, and if you look up and Caleb Williams somehow is still there at number 2, you have to take. He's obviously the number 1 player in this draft, so I don't know why Chicago wouldn't take him. But I know that they're going back and forth between Drake May and Jaden McDaniels. I think Washington should take the better quarterback and just let the chips fall where they may. Please go get Jaden McDaniels. You hear J.J. McCarthy getting much love, saying he can go second. No, I have J.J. McCarthy going to the Vikings at 11. I think this is going to be a very interesting draft, man. Like, I have Rome Odunze going to the Bears at 9. I have the Chargers getting Malik Nabers. I think probably I have Michael Penix Jr. going to Seattle at 16. I don't think Seattle, I got the Ravens at 30 getting Jordan Morgan. I got Kool-Aid McKinstry going to the Lions because the Lions definitely need help. Again, I'm not going to go over this whole thing, but I do have it. I do have it. I don't like doing it because I think it kind of like fantasy, and I do play fantasy football, but it just skews how I see things, and it's just like, bruh, these mock drafts can get wrecked with one trade. Like, and a lot of the times mock drafts don't include trades, which I get, obviously. So I do have Brock Bowers going to the Bengals at 18. A lot of people look at me like, what? Because I think a lot of mock drafts that had him going to the Jets at 10, but there's no way that you can look at that offensive line. There's no way that you can look at what happened to Aaron Rodgers and think that they shouldn't prioritize offensive line. I mean, I have J.C. Latham going to the Jets, but that's me. So again, shouts out to everyone that's going to get drafted. Obviously, we'll talk about it next episode. But hey, bro, Washington, please get Jaden McDaniels. I know I think the Sam Howell experience kind of soured me to North Carolina quarterbacks. And maybe I'm looking at Drake May a little too harshly, but hey, that's where we're at. Get Jaden McDaniels. The man won a Heisman at LSU. They're saying, I'm not saying he's gonna be him, but they're saying his player comp is Lamar Jackson. Hey man, do what you gotta do. But I'll tell you this: if I hear J.J. McCarthy's name at number 2, and no offense to him, but I have him going number 11. Yeah, we'll see. And lastly, before we go, I've said this on a numerous number of occasions. Do not underestimate your opponent. I've also said you don't play fight, you don't play box, you don't play in the UFC. These are people trying to take your head off. I understand leading up to the fight, everything under God's green earth would have had people think that Ryan Garcia was going to get his head knocked off against Devin Haney. Some of the things that have come out with Ryan Garcia, some of the things that he said, just the erratic behavior that he's had, it looked like Ryan Garcia. It was going to be a long day for Ryan Garcia against Devin Haney. And to give Devin Haney credit, he has been great. I mean, there has been some fights that you can argue back and forth. Like, I'm one of the people that think that he lost to Lovinchenko, but, obviously my opinion doesn't matter. And I'm not taking Devin Haney has been great for the sport of boxing. He's been great. But I think there was a level of I think he backed off a little bit. Not in the sense of like he wanted to win, but I think that he saw how erratic Ryan Garcia was and was like, you know what, I don't need to take this fight as seriously because he's not taking the fight as seriously. Well, Ryan Garcia beat the, I'm not going to say beat the brakes, but he beat the hell out of Devin Haney. Knocked him down 3 times. And I think gave Devin Haney his first boxing loss. Again, you don't play box, man. And I'm not saying he's play boxing, but what I'm saying is never underestimate your opponent. It don't matter how erratic they looked, because at the end of the day, both people are trying to take each other's heads off. So shouts out to Ryan Garcia for beating Devin Haney. Yeah, it was, bro, he knocked that man down 3 times. And it was by decision, I think, but the ref saved Devin Haney a couple times. I mean, people on social media are saying it. I saw it. Yeah, there's been a couple times where the fight should have stopped, but it didn't. And it was a good fight, but yeah, all that erratic stuff went out the window during that fight because Ryan Garcia looked focused as hell. And yeah. And there you have it, man. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. If you like the content, if you like what you're watching, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It means a lot. Also, I know there's a lot of people that only watch YouTube, and there's a lot of people that only listen to DSP. So if you do listen to the DSPs, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, please subscribe. Please follow. It definitely means a lot. You guys are extremely important as well. So wherever you listen, please subscribe. Also, please follow the socials. Follow Instagram. Follow TikTok. I post pretty much daily there. That's where we can debate. That's where you can tell me how much you hate my takes, how much you love my takes, and I probably will respond. A lot of the reels that you see on YouTube, I have to cut them down to 1 minute. They're usually longer, which you get to see on social media. So go follow the socials. Again, Instagram, TikTok. You get daily content pretty much from there. And yeah, I'm excited about this NBA playoffs. I'm excited about the NHL playoffs. I'm actually in tune with the NHL playoffs right now. I probably have maybe the Dallas Stars going. They kind of look like juggernauts. And yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited about this draft. We'll talk about it next episode. Until next time, much love.